welcome, and thank you for being here tonight. As you settle in, finding that perfect position where your body feels supported and comfortable, we're going to embark on a gentle journey together. A journey back through time, traveling slowly and peacefully through millions upon millions of years to visit some of the strangest, most wonderful, and most fascinating creatures that have ever existed on our planet Earth. You don't need to do anything at all except relax, breathe softly and naturally, and let your mind drift wherever it wants to go. There's absolutely no urgency here, no pressure, no deadlines, no need to remember every single detail or fact. This is simply a quiet, safe space where you can rest deeply while we wander together through what scientists call deep time, exploring fossils so unusual, so bizarre, so unexpected, that when they were first discovered, scientists genuinely thought they might be mistakes, impossible dreams turned to stone, or puzzles far too strange to ever solve. Imagine, if you will, the truly immense stretch of time that lies behind us, stretching back into the distant past. Millions and millions and millions of years, stacked one upon another, like layers of the softest blankets you can imagine, each layer holding its own precious secrets, its own stories, its own glimpses into vanished worlds. Within those layers of ancient rock, pressed so gently into stone by the patient weight of time and sediment, are the remnants of ancient lives that once moved and breathed and existed. Some of these ancient creatures are familiar to us, recognizable echoes of the animals we know and see today. But many others, perhaps most others, are so profoundly bizarre, so completely unlike anything currently walking on land, or swimming in the oceans, or flying through the skies of Earth right now, that when they were first discovered and carefully extracted from the stone, no one quite knew what to make of them. No one could understand how they lived, how they moved, or even which end was the head and which was the tail. And that's exactly where our journey begins tonight, right here in this place of wonder and mystery and quiet amazement, where the rules of life, as we understand them, seem to have been written completely differently. Let's start by drifting back, floating gently backward through time, more than 500 million years into the past, to a time called the Cambrian period. This is a world that would be almost completely unrecognizable to us if we could somehow visit it. There are no trees anywhere on the continents, no flowers blooming in meadows, no grasses waving in the breeze, no birds singing their morning songs. The land itself is barren, rocky, and utterly silent, baked by the sun during the day and cooled by the stars at night. But beneath the surface of the warm, shallow seas that cover much of the planet, something extraordinary is happening. Life is exploding in every possible direction, experimenting wildly with shapes and forms and body plans that will never, ever be seen again in all the millions of years that follow. The water is calm and clear, filtered with soft, diffused light from above and down on the seafloor, covered with fine mud and drifting particles. Something small and very strange is moving slowly forward. This peculiar creature is called Hallucigenia, and the name itself tells you something important about how bizarre it appears. It walks slowly, almost dreamlike, almost floating, across the ancient seabed. It's only about an inch or two long, no bigger than the length of your thumb, but its tiny body is covered in pairs of long, straight spines that rise upward like the spikes of a miniature, alien caterpillar, or perhaps like the needles of some impossible cactus. For a very long time, decades in fact, scientists weren't even sure which end of this creature was the head and which was the tail. They looked at the fossils and couldn't make sense of what they were seeing. Some thought it might actually walk on its spines, balancing upside down in some strange, impossible way. Others thought the spines were legs. But eventually, with better fossils and better understanding, they realized that the spines pointed upward, providing defense against anything that might try to eat this small, vulnerable animal, and underneath the body were soft little legs, paired and delicate, that carried it gently forward through its ancient world. Imagine Hallucigenia moving slowly through a world of soft mud and gently drifting particles of organic matter. Its body is almost translucent in the dim, filtered light that reaches down through the water. It has no eyes that we know of, no voice box, no way to cry out or call to others of its kind. It simply exists, moment by moment, moving quietly and peacefully through its environment, filtering tiny morsels of food from the water or carefully picking through the seafloor sediment, living its small, strange, utterly unique life in a time long, long before anyone could have imagined what life would eventually become. The name Hallucigenia was chosen by the scientist who first studied it because the creature seemed so surreal, so dreamlike, almost like a hallucination made solid and then fossilized. And in a way, that's perfectly fitting for where we are right now, drifting together through these soft edges between waking and sleep, between the present moment and the deep past, floating through imagination and reality all at once. There were so many strange and beautiful shapes in those ancient Cambrian seas, so many experiments in how to build a body, how to move, how to survive. Another one of these creatures, perhaps even stranger than Hallucigenia, even more unusual in its design, is called Opabinia. Take a moment and picture this in your mind. A body about 2 to 3 inches long, segmented like a shrimp, or perhaps like the body of an insect, with delicate fins that ripple gently along both sides, allowing it to swim or hover just above the seafloor. But the truly unusual part, the part that makes scientists smile with wonder, is its head. Opabinia has 5 eyes. Not 2, like most animals we're familiar with. 5 round, dark eyes arranged across the front of its body, each one independently scanning the water in a different direction, each one watching for food or danger or the movements of other creatures in the murky green water. And extending forward from its head, reaching out ahead of those 5 watching eyes, is a long, flexible tube, almost like a snorkel or a tiny elephant's trunk, and at the very end of this tube is a small claw or pincer. Scientists believe that this strange, flexible appendage was used to grab food from the mud or to pluck small creatures from the water as Opabinia swam or hovered above the seafloor. Imagine Opabinia suspended there in the water, its 5 eyes watching in multiple directions at once, its tubular arm reaching down delicately, carefully, almost thoughtfully, to grasp a tiny morsel of food and bring it back to its mouth, which was hidden underneath its body. It's such an odd design, so completely unlike anything alive today in our modern oceans. When a scientist first presented a reconstruction of Opabinia to a room full of paleontology experts at a scientific conference, the entire audience suddenly burst into laughter. Not because they thought it was ridiculous or wrong, but because it was so unexpected, so delightfully strange, so far outside anything they had imagined possible. It was the laughter of pure surprise and wonder. These remarkable creatures, Hallucigenia and Opabinia, and so many others like them, were preserved in a very special place, a fossil site high up in the Canadian Rockies known as the Burgess Shale. Today, this site sits high in the mountains, cold and windswept and surrounded by peaks and glaciers. But 500 million years ago, it was the floor of a warm, tropical sea. What made this place special, what made it capable of preserving these soft-bodied creatures in such exquisite detail, were sudden mudslides. Every so often, sediment on the edge of an underwater cliff would become unstable and collapse, rushing down the slope and burying everything in its path so quickly and so completely that the soft bodies of creatures didn't have time to decay. Instead of rotting away and disappearing forever, they left impressions, perfect shadows of their forms pressed into the fine mud, which slowly turned to shale over millions of years. When paleontologists carefully split open the dark gray rock with special tools, they find these ghostly outlines, delicate and detailed beyond belief, showing us shapes and body plans that by all rights should have been lost forever to time. Let's drift forward in time now, moving ahead by hundreds of millions of years, letting the Cambrian period fade gently behind us. The ancient seas of the Cambrian are gone, replaced by new oceans with new creatures. Life has continued its endless experiments, its constant trying and testing of new forms, new strategies for survival. And in these later seas, during a time period called the Permian, around 270 million years ago, we encounter another strange and wonderful puzzle, another fossil so bizarre that it baffled scientists for more than a century. This creature is called Helicoprion. Helicoprion was a kind of ancient shark, or more accurately, a close relative of sharks, swimming powerfully through the oceans of the Permian period. It grew to impressive sizes, perhaps 15 to 20 feet long, a powerful predator moving smoothly and efficiently through the water, hunting the squid-like creatures and fish that filled those ancient seas. But here's the strange part, the part that confused everyone for so long: its teeth. Instead of having rows of teeth that fall out and get replaced continuously the way modern sharks do, losing teeth and growing new ones throughout their lives, Helicoprion kept all of its old teeth, every single one, adding new teeth in a spiral pattern as it grew. The result was a bizarre, tightly coiled structure, almost like a circular saw blade made entirely of teeth, whirl upon whirl upon whirl, each tooth sharp and curving and slightly different from the others, creating a perfect logarithmic spiral that looks almost mathematical in its precision. For many, many years, almost a century in fact, scientists had absolutely no idea where on the animal's body this strange tooth whorl actually belonged. They had fossil after fossil showing this spiral of teeth, but never any indication of the rest of the animal. No skull, no spine, no fins. It was like finding a single, very strange puzzle piece with no picture on the box to guide you. Some paleontologists thought the whorl might be mounted on the dorsal fin on the shark's back, sticking up like some kind of bizarre decoration. Others imagined it curling out from the tip of the snout like a saw blade. Still, others thought it might dangle from the tail or be positioned in other unlikely places. Fossil after fossil was discovered, but each one showed only the spiral teeth and nothing more, leaving the mystery unsolved. It wasn't until much more recently, when more complete specimens were finally found and studied using modern CT scanning technology, that the mystery was solved once and for all. The whorl sat inside the lower jaw, tucked into the mouth, where new teeth grew continuously at the front of the spiral, and older teeth curved back and around, tucked neatly against the roof of the mouth. Imagine Hallucigenia now, gliding smoothly through the dark water of an ancient ocean, its streamlined body moving with the efficient power of a predator. Its mouth opens slightly, and that strange coil of teeth hidden inside is ready to slice through the soft bodies of the squid-like creatures it hunted. It's such an unusual design, so specific to that particular moment in evolutionary history, so perfectly adapted to its particular prey and its particular time. Today, no shark or fish or any other creature in any ocean on Earth carries anything remotely like it. The tooth whorl of Hallucigenia is a beautiful reminder that evolution tries many, many different paths, experiments with countless designs, and most of them, the vast majority of them, are never repeated. Hallucigenia was a one-time experiment, strange and beautiful and effective for millions of years, and now it exists only as fossils, preserved in stone so that we can wonder at it and try to understand it. Now, let's shift our focus to a very different kind of fossil preservation, one that captures not just the hard parts of animals like bones and teeth and shells, but the entire creature, soft tissue and all, frozen perfectly in time, as if by magic. Imagine yourself walking slowly through an ancient forest, somewhere around 80 or 90 million years ago, during the Cretaceous period. The air is warm and humid, thick and heavy with moisture and the rich scent of vegetation and the distinctive smell of resin dripping slowly from tall conifer trees. A mosquito, tiny and delicate, lands gently on the rough bark of a tree trunk, perhaps to rest for a moment or to feed on plant fluids. And then, before it can fly away, before it even knows what's happening, a large drop of thick, sticky resin falls from above and engulfs it completely. More resin flows down, sealing the insect inside an amber prison. Over millions upon millions of years, the resin slowly hardens and transforms chemically, becoming amber, a golden, translucent gemstone with a tiny passenger trapped inside, perfectly preserved, waiting to be discovered. Amber fossils, are like windows into specific moments in deep time, snapshots of individual seconds from millions of years ago. Inside a piece of amber, carefully polished and held up to the light, you might find a bee, its delicate wings still outstretched as if it were frozen mid-flight, every detail of its body visible. Or you might find a spider, its long legs curled delicately, every single hair on its body preserved and visible under magnification. Or a tiny frog, no bigger than your fingernail, perfectly preserved down to the individual texture of its skin and the tiny scales on its toes. These fossils are so detailed, so incredibly lifelike, that when you look at them, you can almost believe the creature might come back to life if you just warmed the amber enough. You can see the individual scales on a lizard's belly, the individual pollen grains still stuck to a beetle's back and legs, even the individual cells inside a feather's structure. One of the most beautiful and scientifically important amber fossils ever found anywhere in the world is a feathered dinosaur tail, about 1.5 inches long, preserved in absolute perfection inside a piece of amber from Myanmar. The feathers are still arranged in their completely natural pattern, soft and delicate and flexible looking, colored in shades of chestnut brown and white that have somehow survived for 99 million years. You can see the individual barbs and barbules, the tiny structures that make a feather flexible and light and capable of creating smooth surfaces for flight or insulation. It's almost impossible to believe that something so fragile, so delicate, so seemingly temporary could possibly survive for 99 million years, traveling through that immense span of time to arrive in our present day. But there it is, held gently and protectively in the golden resin, a precious gift from the deep past delivered to us across nearly 100 million years. Amber also preserves behaviors and relationships, moments of interaction between creatures. There are pieces of amber containing ants in the process of carrying leaf fragments, their tiny mandibles clamped onto pieces of vegetation. There are spiders carefully wrapped in their own silk, perhaps having died in their own webs. There are parasites still attached to their hosts, showing us ancient relationships between species. Each piece of amber is essentially a snapshot, a split second from an ordinary day in the Cretaceous period, captured and held and protected so we can witness it millions of years later. And as you imagine these small, delicate creatures going about their daily lives, feeding and hunting and building and reproducing, completely unaware that they are about to be immortalized in amber, trapped and preserved forever, you can feel a sense of connection across all that time. They lived, they moved, they tried to survive and thrive, just like every living thing today. They had their own small dramas, their own moments of success and failure, all happening in a world so different from ours, and yet fundamentally the same in the basic patterns of life. Let's move now to a completely different kind of fossil story, one that captures not just a single animal going about its business, but a moment of intense interaction between two creatures, a moment of struggle and combat, frozen forever in stone at the instant of death. In the remote, windswept deserts of Mongolia, in a place where sandstone cliffs glow red and orange in the setting sun and the horizon stretches endlessly in all directions, paleontologists in the early 1970s uncovered one of the most dramatic, most story-filled fossils ever discovered anywhere on Earth. Two dinosaurs locked together in combat, their bodies intertwined, buried suddenly and completely by a collapsing sand dune. This extraordinary fossil is known simply as the fighting dinosaurs, and it tells a vivid story that happened around 75 million years ago, preserved in such detail that we can almost see it unfolding before our eyes. On one side of this ancient drama, frozen in stone, is a velociraptor, a small, agile predator about the size of a large dog, or perhaps a wolf, maybe 6 feet long from the tip of its snout to the end of its tail, and weighing around 30 pounds or so. Its body is lean and light, built for speed and agility rather than raw power. Its legs are long and powerful, designed for running and jumping. And on each foot, one toe bears a large, curved, sickle-shaped claw, raised up off the ground as it walked, kept sharp and ready for hunting. On the other side of this preserved encounter is a protoceratops, a plant-eating dinosaur roughly the size of a large pig, about 6 feet long and weighing perhaps 400 pounds, solidly built with a beaked mouth, perfect for cropping vegetation, and a distinctive bony frill extending back from its skull, protecting its neck and shoulders. These two animals, predator and prey, are locked together in what appears to be their final moment. In the fossil, preserved in perfect three-dimensional detail, the velociraptor's distinctive foot claw is deeply embedded in the throat area of the protoceratops, a killing blow aimed at a vulnerable spot. And in response, in what was probably a desperate act of self-defense, the protoceratops has clamped its powerful beaked jaws down on the velociraptor's arm, holding it tight, refusing to let go even in death. Neither one of these animals could escape from this deadly embrace. A sudden sandstorm, or perhaps a collapsing sand dune, buried them both in an instant, suffocating them, entombing them together. And there they remained for 75 million years, held together in stone, their last moment preserved in exquisite, heart-breaking detail. When you look at this fossil, either in person or in photographs, you're not seeing a reconstruction or an artist's interpretation or a scientific guess. You're seeing exactly where each bone was positioned at the actual moment of death. You can see the precise curve of the velociraptor's sickle claw, the exact position of the protoceratops' head, the way their bodies are intertwined and locked together. It's a powerful, humbling reminder that fossils are not just interesting objects or curiosities. They are stories. Real stories from real lives, written in bone and stone and time. This kind of exceptional preservation, where animals are caught in the very act of doing something, in the middle of a behavior or an interaction, is extraordinarily rare and precious. Each such fossil is like a photograph from deep time, capturing a moment that would otherwise be completely lost. There are fossils of fish in the middle of giving birth, with tiny baby skeletons still halfway emerged from the mother's body, frozen at the moment of entry into the world. There are fossils of larger fish, with smaller fish still visible inside their stomach cavities, the last meal they ever ate, preserved for millions of years. And there are fossils of birds and other animals that died while eating, their prey lodged partway down their throats, telling us stories about what these ancient creatures hunted and how they fed. One such remarkable fossil is a large fish called Gphactinus, a powerful predatory fish from the late Cretaceous period, about 80 million years ago. Gphactinus could grow to be truly impressive in size, 13 to 15 feet long, with a huge head and enormous jaws lined with sharp fangs. It was a fearsome hunter in the ancient seas that once covered the middle of what is now the United States, the shallow western interior seaway that split North America in half during much of the Cretaceous period. One particularly famous specimen, displayed in museums and known to paleontologists around the world, was found with another fish, about 6 feet long, perfectly preserved inside its body cavity, its bones still completely articulated. Imagine the moment this happened. Try to picture it in your mind. The Gphactinus spots prey, a large fish, but not quite as large as itself. It accelerates through the water, opens its huge mouth wide, and swallows its prey whole in one powerful, aggressive motion, gulping it down the way a snake might swallow a large meal. But then something goes wrong. Maybe the prey was too large, too difficult to digest. Maybe it struggled inside and damaged something vital. Maybe a sharp bone punctured something important. Whatever happened, the Gphactinus dies, probably fairly quickly, and its body sinks slowly down to the seafloor, coming to rest in soft mud. Both predator and prey are buried together, the meal still inside the hunter, and millions of years later, we find them exactly as they were. This fossil is so complete, so clear and detailed, that you can see every bone of both fish, the eater and the eaten, predator and prey united in death and then in fossilization, and finally in our wonder as we contemplate them. It's displayed in museums where visitors from around the world stand quietly before it, staring, trying to comprehend and fully process the sequence of events that led to this remarkable moment of preservation. It's a humbling thing, a profound thing, to see time stopped so completely, so perfectly. The Gphactinus didn't know it would become a fossil, didn't know it would be famous, didn't know that millions of years later, creatures it could never have imagined would stand and look at its bones and try to understand its life and death. It was just trying to survive, to eat, to live another day in its ancient ocean. And now, 80 million years later, we're looking at it with our modern eyes, learning from it, marveling at the incredible detail that preservation has granted us, feeling connected across that vast gulf of time. Let's turn our attention now to the ancient oceans and some of the giants that ruled them, the massive reptiles that dominated the seas during the age of dinosaurs. While enormous sauropod dinosaurs walked the land, shaking the ground with their footsteps, and pterosaurs with wingspans of 30 feet or more soared through the air, the seas were ruled by reptiles as well, creatures whose ancestors had once lived on land but had returned to the water, evolving over millions of years to become perfectly adapted to aquatic life. These marine reptiles came in many different forms, many different body plans, but some of the strangest and most successful were the mosasaurs. Mosasaurs were not dinosaurs, despite living at the same time and despite being large reptiles. They were actually more closely related to modern lizards and snakes. In fact, scientists consider them close cousins of today's monitor lizards, like the Komodo dragons that live in Indonesia. But mosasaurs evolved to live entirely in the sea, never coming onto land even to lay eggs, and they became some of the most fearsome, most successful predators of the late Cretaceous oceans. Some species grew to truly enormous sizes, 40 feet long or more, with some of the very largest possibly reaching 50 feet in length. They had powerful jaws lined with sharp, conical teeth, perfect for gripping slippery prey. Their bodies were streamlined and muscular, built for speed and power, with paddle-like limbs that helped with steering and maneuverability, and a long, muscular tail that moved side to side like a crocodile's, propelling them powerfully through the water. Imagine a mosasaur now, gliding smoothly through the warm, shallow seas of the late Cretaceous, its large eyes scanning constantly for any sign of movement, any opportunity for a meal. It spots a school of fish in the distance, their silvery bodies flashing in the filtered sunlight. The mosasaur accelerates, its powerful body undulating smoothly, efficiently, closing the distance in seconds. Its jaws open wide, revealing rows of sharp teeth, and it snaps up several fish in quick succession, swallowing them whole, barely slowing its movement. Mosasaurs were opportunistic hunters, flexible in their diet. They ate fish, certainly, but also squid, ammonites with their coiled shells, sea turtles despite their protective shells, seabirds that ventured too far from shore, and even other marine reptiles, including smaller mosasaurs. Some fossils show clear bite marks from mosasaurs on the shells of sea turtles, on the paddle bones of plesiosaurs, on ammonite shells. These are proof of their power, their aggression, their success as predators. But what makes mosasaurs particularly interesting from a fossil perspective, what makes them truly special to paleontologists, is how remarkably well their remains have been preserved in many locations, and consequently, how much we've been able to learn about their biology and their lives. Fossils show us, conclusively, that mosasaurs gave birth to live young in the water, rather than laying eggs on beaches like sea turtles do. Pregnant mosasaurs have been found with baby mosasaur skeletons still inside their body cavities. Tiny, perfect versions of the adults, fully formed and clearly ready to be born directly into the water. This tells us something profound, that mosasaurs were so fully adapted to life in the sea, so completely aquatic, that they never needed to return to land, not even for the critical task of reproduction. They were born in the water, they lived their entire lives in the water, and they died in the water, never once feeling solid ground beneath them. There are also fossils that show mosasaurs had remarkable soft tissue structures, details that normally would never be preserved. Some specimens show impressions of skin, revealing patterns of scales. Some show evidence of other soft tissues. And most remarkably, Some specimens preserve clear evidence of a tail fluke, a vertical fin structure at the end of the tail, similar in form to what we see in modern whales and dolphins today. This is a beautiful example of what scientists call convergent evolution, where completely different animals, separated by millions of years of evolutionary history, independently evolve very similar solutions to the same problem. In this case, the problem is how to swim efficiently and powerfully in the ocean, and the solution, arrived at separately by mosasaurs and by whales, is a tail fluke that moves up and down or side to side to push water and propel the animal forward. It's beautiful, in a way, to see the same elegant design appear over and over again in the long history of life on Earth, proof that there are certain optimal solutions to certain problems, and evolution finds them repeatedly. Now, let's slow down our journey even further. Let's become even more gentle and quiet, and focus on something smaller, something deeply tender and peaceful and moving. Let's talk about the fossils of baby dinosaurs, of juvenile dinosaurs, of eggs and nests and family groups. These are among the most emotionally moving and scientifically important fossils ever discovered anywhere, because they show us not the violence or drama or danger of prehistoric life, but rather the quiet, vulnerable, deeply familiar moments of growth and care and family bonds. In the wind-swept badlands of Montana, in layers of rock that were once river valleys and floodplains 75 million years ago, paleontologists have found remarkable nests belonging to Maiasaura, a duck-billed dinosaur, a hadrosaur. Maiasaura means good mother lizard, and this name was chosen very deliberately because the fossils tell a clear, touching story of parental care, of adults looking after their young. The nests themselves are large, about 6 feet across, made of carefully mounded earth and vegetation arranged in a circle. Inside the nests are eggs, some still miraculously intact after all this time, and also the tiny, delicate bones of baby Maiasaura, some only a foot or so long, small enough to hold in your hands. The fossils show us that these babies stayed in the nest after hatching, remaining there for an extended period. Their leg bones show wear marks, clear signs that they were moving around within the nest, shuffling and walking and interacting, but their bones also show that they weren't yet strong enough to leave, weren't yet developed enough to keep up with the adult herd. This means the parents must have brought food to them, returning to the nest repeatedly to feed the babies, caring for them patiently until they were large enough and strong enough to leave the nest and follow the herd. This is clear evidence of complex social behavior, of family groups staying together, of mothers and fathers and perhaps older siblings, all taking care of the vulnerable young ones. And all of this behavior, all of these moments of care and feeding and protection are preserved in stone, waiting quietly for 75 million years until someone could find them and understand what they meant, could read the story written in fossil bones. There are other baby dinosaur fossils too, found in various locations around the world, each one precious and moving in its own way. There are tiny skeletons curled up in sleeping positions, bodies arranged naturally as if the baby simply lay down to rest and never woke up. Some are found in groups, multiple babies nestled close together as if they had huddled together for warmth or comfort or safety. Others are alone, solitary, their small skeletons perfectly articulated with every bone in its proper place, showing us exactly how they lay down in their final moments. It's sad, certainly, to think of these young lives ending before they truly began. But there's also something peaceful about it, something that connects us across all those millions of years. These little ones lived and died in a world so profoundly different from ours. A world of giant ferns and volcanic ash and inland seas, and yet the basic patterns are the same. The impulse to care for young, to sleep curled up for warmth and security, to stay close to family members for protection, these are things we recognize immediately. They bridge the gap of time, making these ancient creatures feel less alien, more familiar, more connected to us. Let's drift now to what might be the very strangest fossils of all, the ones that challenge and overturn everything we thought we understood about how bodies can be built, about what shapes are possible, about the basic rules of animal anatomy. In the early history of life on Earth, especially during that Cambrian period we visited at the beginning of our journey, evolution was in an experimental phase, trying out designs that seem almost playful in their strangeness, almost impossible in their weirdness. These are the soft-bodied creatures of ancient seas, preserved against all odds in rare and beautiful detail at special fossil sites around the world. One such creature that we should spend more time with is Anomalocaris, whose scientific name means strange shrimp, though, as scientists eventually discovered, it was most definitely neither strange by the standards of its time, nor a shrimp by any definition. Anomalocaris was actually one of the largest predators of the Cambrian seas, growing up to 3 feet long, which made it an absolute giant in a world where most creatures measured their body length in fractions of an inch. Anomalocaris had a segmented body that looked somewhat shrimp-like, with large compound eyes mounted on stalks that could move independently, and most distinctively, 2 long flexible arms extending from the front of its head, lined with sharp spines along their inner edges, perfect for grabbing and holding squirming prey and bringing it to the mouth. And what a mouth it was! The mouth of Anomalocaris was utterly unique, a circular opening lined with plates that could open and close like the aperture of a camera, or perhaps like the iris of an eye. It's unlike any mouth structure in any animal alive today. When Anomalocaris caught something, it would bring the prey to this circular mouth, and the plates would close, grinding and crushing, breaking through the hard shells of trilobites and other armored creatures. For many years, for decades, in fact, scientists found pieces of Anomalocaris scattered through the Burgess Shale fossils, but didn't realize they all belonged to the same animal. The circular mouth fossil was thought to be a strange jellyfish and was given its own scientific name. The grasping arms were thought to be some kind of shrimp and were also named as a separate species. The body was thought to be yet another creature, perhaps a type of sea cucumber. It wasn't until paleontologists found a complete, fully articulated fossil that all the pieces suddenly clicked into place, and everyone realized with amazement that all these supposedly separate animals were actually different parts of one bizarre, wonderful creature. And once they understood what they were looking for, they could suddenly see Anomalocaris everywhere in the fossils, swimming through those ancient waters, the top predator of its time, the thing other creatures feared and tried to avoid. Imagine Anomalocaris moving through the water now. Let yourself picture it clearly. Its segmented body ripples with gentle waves of muscular motion, propelling it forward smoothly and efficiently. Its stalked eyes swivel independently, scanning in different directions, searching constantly for prey, or perhaps for rivals. It spots a trilobite crawling along the sea floor far below, and it tilts its body and descends smoothly, gracefully, its grasping arms extending forward, reaching out. The arms curl around the trilobite, spines gripping its hard shell and lifted up toward the circular mouth. The mouth opens, then pulses closed, and the trilobite's shell begins to crack under the pressure. It's a scene from another world, from a time so distant it barely seems real, and yet it is real. It happened over and over countless times in seas that no longer exist on a planet that looked completely different. Another soft-bodied wonder from the Cambrian that deserves our attention is a creature called Waiwaxia. Picture something about an inch or two long, roughly oval in shape, covered completely in overlapping scales like armor plating, and topped with long, upright spines sticking up like the quills of a porcupine. It looks like some impossible combination of a slug and a porcupine, something that seems too strange to be real, and yet there it is, preserved beautifully in the fossils. Waiwaxia moved slowly and peacefully across the seafloor, grazing on algae or bacteria or organic matter, using a feeding structure called a radula, a ribbon-like tongue covered in tiny teeth, similar to what we see in modern mollusks like snails and slugs. Its body plan is so unusual, so different from anything else, that scientists have been debating for decades about where exactly it fits on the tree of life. Is it related to mollusks like snails and clams? Is it related to annelid worms, like earthworms and marine worms? Is it related to something else entirely? Perhaps a group that no longer exists? The fossils are beautiful and strange and detailed, but they don't give easy answers. Sometimes the past keeps its secrets, leaving us to wonder and speculate and debate. And then there are Cambrian creatures so bizarre, so utterly strange, that they don't even have common names, only long scientific names that are hard to pronounce, and even those scientific names are sometimes tentative, questioned, debated. There are fossils of animals with bodies like segmented tubes, covered in geometric plates arranged in mathematical patterns with appendages extending outward, that look like feathers or fans or perhaps filters for feeding. There are creatures that seem to be part sponge, part worm, part something entirely unknown and unclassifiable. The Cambrian seas were a time of explosive, wild creativity, a period when life was trying everything, when the basic body plans we see today were still being tested and refined, and many other body plans that would ultimately prove unsuccessful were also being tried. The fossils preserve that creativity in exquisite, heartbreaking, delicate detail, showing us a world of possibilities, most of which were never repeated. These soft-bodied fossils exist at all only because of very specific, very rare conditions. Normally, as you know, when an animal dies, the soft parts of its body decay very quickly. Bacteria and other scavengers consume the tissues within days or weeks. Only the hard parts, the bones and teeth and shells, have any real chance of becoming fossils, and even those usually fall apart and scatter. But in certain rare places, where mud buries creatures very quickly before decay can begin, or where the chemistry of the water is just right to prevent bacterial growth, soft tissues can be preserved. The Burgess Shale in Canada is one such magical place. The Chengjiang fossil site in China, which preserves even older Cambrian creatures, is another. The Ediacaran fossils of Australia, older still, show us the first large multicellular creatures on Earth. And there are others scattered around the world, each one an invaluable treasure trove of strangeness and beauty. Let's take a moment now, a quiet, restful moment, to appreciate and think about the people who find and study these incredible fossils. Paleontologists are patient, dedicated people who spend months or even years at a time in remote places, far from cities and comfort, carefully searching through rock formations for signs of ancient life. They work slowly, methodically, often in uncomfortable or even harsh conditions, enduring desert heat or mountain cold, wind and dust and sun, camping in tents, living simply, driven by curiosity and the hope of discovery. And when they do find something, when a fossil finally reveals itself, they don't just pull it roughly out of the ground and throw it in a bag. Instead, they treat it with immense care and respect. They map its exact position, recording its location in 3 dimensions, its orientation, what layer of rock it came from. They photograph it from every possible angle, creating a visual record of exactly how it looked in the ground. And then they remove it with extreme care, sometimes spending days or weeks carefully excavating around a single specimen, sometimes encasing entire large blocks of rock in protective plaster jackets to keep the fossil safe on its long journey to a laboratory or museum. In the laboratory, the careful, patient work continues. Fossil preparators, skilled technicians who are part scientist and part artist, use tiny tools to reveal the fossils hidden inside rock. They work with fine needles, delicate brushes, even dental picks and air abrasion tools, removing the surrounding rock grain by grain, bit by bit. It can take hundreds of hours, sometimes thousands of hours, to fully reveal and prepare a single specimen. The work requires incredible patience, a steady hand, good eyes, and deep respect for the fossil and what it represents. And then, once the fossil is finally revealed and prepared, scientists study it intensively. They take thousands of measurements, comparing it to other fossils, looking for similarities and differences. They use microscopes to see details invisible to the naked eye. They use CT scanners and other high-tech equipment to look inside the fossil without damaging it, revealing internal structures, seeing things that would be impossible to see any other way. It's patient, Meticulous, careful work driven by curiosity and a profound respect for the deep past and the stories it has to tell. And what they discover through all this patient work changes and deepens the way we understand life itself. Every weird fossil, every strange body plan, every unexpected detail, every surprise adds another piece to the enormous puzzle of evolution and the history of life on Earth. It shows us that life is more creative, more adaptable, more resilient, more diverse than we ever imagined or dreamed possible. It shows us that the rules we think are fixed, the ways we assume bodies must be built, the ways we believe organs must be arranged, these are really just guidelines, suggestions, patterns that evolution can bend or break or completely ignore when conditions allow or require it. Let's visit one more strange and beautiful fossil site before we begin to wind down our journey, before we start to gently descend toward rest and sleep. This one comes from much more recent times, geologically speaking, from about 50 million years ago, during a period called the Eocene. The world then was dramatically different from the world of the Cambrian or the Cretaceous. It was warm, very warm, tropical even at high latitudes, where today we find ice and tundra. Palm trees grew in Wyoming. Crocodiles swam in Arctic rivers. And in what is now Germany, in a region that today is temperate and mild, there was a series of deep, crater-like lakes formed by ancient volcanic activity. These lakes had a very particular, very unusual property that made them perfect for fossil preservation. The water at the bottom of each lake was stagnant, completely still, with no oxygen at all dissolved in it. Nothing could live down there in that anoxic zone. But the surface water was full of oxygen and full of life, teeming with fish and insects and water plants. The forest around the lakes was lush and vibrant, filled with early horses the size of dogs, with primitive primates, with bats and birds and countless insects. And sometimes, creatures from the surface would die and sink down through the water column into that dead zone at the bottom. There, protected from scavengers and from oxygen-dependent bacteria, they weren't disturbed or torn apart or consumed. They simply settled gently into the soft mud and were buried, layer by layer, year by year, century by century, until eventually the lakes dried up and disappeared and the mud turned slowly to stone. The result of this special preservation is a fossil site called Messel Pit, and it contains some of the most perfectly preserved, most beautiful, most scientifically valuable fossils of mammals, birds, reptiles, and insects ever found anywhere in the world. At Messel, you can find fossils of early horses, primitive species very different from modern horses, only about the size of small dogs, standing maybe 2 feet tall at the shoulder. And these fossils are so perfectly preserved that you can see all 4 legs extended as if the horse was running or jumping at the moment of death, every bone in place, the skeleton completely articulated. You can find bats with their delicate wing membranes still intact, the thin skin stretched between the elongated finger bones still visible as dark films in the rock, showing the exact shape of the wings, the precise position of every finger bone. You can find snakes with their last meals still visible inside their rib cages. The bones of small mammals or lizards right there, telling us what these ancient snakes hunted and ate. You can find birds with their feathers so beautifully preserved that you can see the individual barbs on each feather, see how they overlapped, understand exactly how these ancient birds looked in life. One of the most beautiful, most moving fossils from Messel is a pregnant mare, one of those small early horses, with a tiny full skeleton visible inside her body, still in the womb. The foal is perfectly formed, completely developed, curled up in the natural position of an unborn baby, almost ready to be born into the Eocene world, but never quite making it. It's a snapshot of motherhood from 50 million years ago, intimate and tender and deeply moving. When you look at this fossil, you're seeing not just bones and anatomy, but a moment of life, a moment of potential, a story that was about to unfold but was cut short. There are also fossils from the cell that preserve evidence of color, actual pigmentation from 50 million years ago. The feathers of some birds still contain microscopic structures called melanosomes, tiny organelles that held pigment molecules in life. These melanosomes have characteristic shapes that correspond to specific colors. By studying these shapes under powerful microscopes, scientists can determine with reasonable confidence what colors the bird actually had when it was alive. They can see that it had browns and blacks, perhaps iridescent sheens that would have flashed in the sunlight. It's like opening a box of old photographs and finding that they're still in color, still vivid and clear after all this time. It brings the past to life in a way that bones alone, beautiful as they are, never could. Fossils like these from Messel remind us of something important, something easy to forget. The deep past was not a gray, colorless, silent, lifeless place. It was full of color and movement, sound and scent, texture and sensation, just as vibrant and alive and real as the world today. The creatures were different, yes. The environments were different. The plants, the climate, the very shape of the continents were different. But the fundamental nature of life, the basic patterns and rhythms, the struggle to survive, to find food, to avoid danger, to reproduce, to care for young, these were exactly the same. And when we look at fossils with open minds and hearts, we're not looking at dead things, at mere objects. We're looking at evidence of lives that were fully lived, completely real, just as important and meaningful as any life today. Now, as we begin to gently descend toward the end of our long journey through time, as we prepare to return to the present moment and to rest, let's think for a few moments about what fossils mean, not just scientifically, but emotionally, philosophically, spiritually even. Fossils are proof, tangible proof, that nothing is truly lost. Every creature that ever lived, no matter how small or brief its life, left some trace, some mark, some evidence of its existence, even if it's just a single footprint preserved in stone or one small tooth or a shadow pressed into rock. The earth remembers. Stone remembers. The layers of sediment remember. And we, with our curiosity and our tools and our desire to understand, can read those memories, can hear those ancient stories, can connect across impossible gulfs of time. There's something deeply comforting about this realization, something that brings peace. In a world that often feels rushed and temporary and disposable, where things are built to break and be replaced, where nothing seems to last, fossils remind us of permanence, of deep time, of the long, slow processes that operate on scales far beyond human lifetimes. They remind us that life has been unfolding on this planet for an incomprehensible span of time, hundreds of millions of years, billions of years even, and that we are part of that great unfolding, not separate from it, not above it, but woven into it, connected to it, part of the same grand story. The same atoms, the same basic elements that made up a Cambrian trilobite crawling on an ancient sea floor might now be part of a tree standing in a forest, or part of a bird flying overhead, or part of you, part of your body, part of your bones and blood. We are all connected, all of us, across time and space and species, through the slow, patient turning of the earth and the endless recycling of matter and energy. And the weird fossils especially, these strange, wonderful creatures we've been visiting tonight, have a special place in this great story. They show us that evolution is not a straight line, not a ladder, not a march of progress towards some predetermined goal. It's a branching, wandering, experimental path full of dead ends and surprising successes and moments of bizarre beauty. Hallucigenia did not lead to us. Neither did Opabinia or Helicoprion or Anomalocaris. They were their own endpoints, their own complete and perfect expressions of what life could be in their particular time and place. And they were successful, wonderfully successful, for millions of years, until circumstances changed and they couldn't adapt and they disappeared. And that's okay. That's natural. That's how life works, how it's always worked. Species appear, they flourish, they adapt, and eventually most of them go extinct, making room for new species, new experiments, new forms. There are fossils still being discovered right now, at this very moment, somewhere in the world. There are paleontologists in the field, carefully brushing dust away from bones, slowly revealing shapes that haven't seen daylight in tens of millions or hundreds of millions of years. There are fossils weathering out of cliff faces right now, slowly being revealed by wind and rain and ice, patient and unhurried, waiting to be noticed and collected and studied. And there are fossils, still hidden, deep in layers of rock, not yet exposed, strange and wonderful things we haven't even imagined yet, creatures that will surprise and delight and confuse us when we finally find them. But you don't need to think about all of that right now. You can just rest. You can let your breathing slow down naturally. Let your body relax completely into whatever surface is supporting you, feeling the softness beneath you, feeling safe and comfortable and at ease. The ancient seas are still there, in your imagination, in your mind's eye, calm and warm and full of strange, gentle creatures moving slowly through filtered light. The forests of the Cretaceous are still growing in your mind, quiet and green and peaceful, with golden amber dripping slowly from the trees, catching and holding tiny creatures, preserving moments. The deserts of Mongolia are still and silent under vast skies full of stars, holding their fossils, keeping their secrets safe. You are safe here, in this moment, in this present, now, connected through your imagination to all of time, part of the long, slow, patient river of life that flows from the incomprehensible deep past forward into an unknowable future. And as you drift now, as you let go of waking thoughts and concerns, you can carry with you the image of those weird, wonderful fossils, beautiful proof that the universe is stranger and more creative and more beautiful than we can ever fully comprehend or understand. Let your mind wander now, gently, softly, without any particular direction or goal. Let thoughts come and go like gentle waves on an ancient shore, soft and rhythmic and peaceful, each one a little quieter than the last, each one a little less distinct. There's no need to chase thoughts, no need to hold on to them or push them away. Just watch them drift past, like clouds moving slowly across a sky, or like light filtering down through clear ancient water, becoming softer and dimmer as you sink deeper. The mosasaurs are swimming somewhere in the back of your mind, slow and graceful, their long, powerful bodies moving in smooth, efficient curves through dark water. The Cephactinus is there too, drifting peacefully, its last meal still inside, both predator and prey at peace now, all struggle ended, all hunger satisfied, turned to stone, and then to story, and finally to peaceful memory. The tiny horses of Messel are frozen mid-step, their legs extended, running forever through a forest that exists now only in fossils and imagination and scientific reconstruction. And those soft-bodied creatures of the Cambrian, those first experimental forms, those early attempts at complexity and specialization, they're all there too in your mind's eye, moving slowly across ancient seafloors in dim green light, living their small, brief, precious lives, each one important, each one part of the grand unfolding of life on Earth. Anomalocaris, with its camera shutter mouth and stalked eyes, Wewaxia, with its crown of spines and armor of scales, Hallucigenia, with its pairs of upward-pointing spikes, Opabinia, with its 5 eyes watching and its strange, grasping arm reaching. And dozens of others, hundreds of others, creatures without names, creatures we'll never fully understand, all of them swimming or crawling or drifting through ancient water that no longer exists. You can be there with them if you like, if your imagination takes you there, floating weightless in that warm Cambrian sea. The water is calm, perfectly calm, the color of pale jade or green glass, and the light from above is soft and diffused and gentle, filtered through the water itself. You're not breathing in this dream space because you don't need to breathe. You're just present, just witnessing, just existing peacefully, watching 500 million years ago, as if it were happening right now, right here, in this gentle space between waking and sleeping. And maybe, as you float there in that ancient water, you notice how quiet everything is. There are no sounds in this ancient sea, no voices, no language, no words, no music. Just the soft, subtle movement of water, the gentle shifting of currents, the whisper of sediment settling. It's peaceful in a way that's almost impossible to describe, a peace that comes from being so far removed from all the concerns and worries and demands of modern life that they simply cease to exist. There are no deadlines in the Cambrian seas, no obligations, no expectations, no pressures. There is only the slow, patient passage of time and the strange, beautiful mystery of life, figuring itself out, trying new things, experimenting, adapting, surviving. You might see a trilobite crawling below you on the seafloor, its segmented body articulated perfectly, each of its many legs moving in careful sequence, pulling it steadily forward across the mud. Trilobites were so successful, so perfectly adapted, so diverse, that they lasted for nearly 300 million years, an almost incomprehensible span of time. They survived multiple mass extinctions, adapted to changing oceans, spread to every marine environment on Earth. And then, at the end of the Permian period, they were gone, vanished forever along with most other life on Earth in the greatest mass extinction the planet has ever known. But while they existed, they were everywhere, thriving, diversifying into thousands of different species, each one a variation on the same elegant basic theme, the same successful body plan. The trilobite doesn't know you're watching from above, floating in the water. It doesn't know it will become a fossil, one of the most common and most beloved fossils in the world, collected and studied and treasured by scientists and amateur enthusiasts alike. It's just living, moment to moment, following its ancient instincts, searching for food particles in the mud, trying to avoid the grasping arms of Anomalocaris and other predators, trying to find a mate, trying to survive one more day. And there's something profoundly beautiful in that, in the simple, unself-conscious existence of a creature just doing what it was built to do, fulfilling its role in the ancient ecosystem, being fully itself without question or doubt. As you continue to float, to drift, to let yourself be carried by gentle currents, you might feel yourself moving forward through time, gliding gently ahead through millions of years, without effort or intention. The Cambrian seas fade gradually around you, and new oceans take their place, different but similar, filled with new creatures but following the same basic patterns. Millions of years pass in what feels like seconds. You see the rise of fish, the development of jaws and complex fins, the increasing sophistication of predator and prey relationships. You see the first tentative movements of life onto land, plants colonizing the rocky shores, then arthropods following, then eventually vertebrates, ancestors of all land animals. You see the age of amphibians, then the age of reptiles, then the magnificent age of dinosaurs. You see the seas fill with ammonites coiling their beautiful chambered shells, with belemnites like ancient squid, with ichthyosaurs streamlined like dolphins, with plesiosaurs and mosasaurs, and countless others. You see the continents themselves drifting slowly, colliding and separating, mountains rising grain by grain, and then wearing down again, whole mountain ranges reduced to gentle hills, oceans opening where land once stood, land rising where oceans once covered everything. And everywhere, in every time period you pass through, in every environment, and every ocean, and every continent, there are weird fossils waiting to be discovered. Strange creatures that challenge our assumptions and expand our understanding. There are armored fish that look like they're wearing medieval plate armor. There are giant amphibians as large as cars, sprawling in Permian swamps. There are crocodile ancestors that walked on land and ran on two legs like miniature dinosaurs. There are turtles with teeth, snakes with legs, whales with four limbs still adapted for walking. Evolution tries everything, tests every possibility, and the fossils faithfully preserve the evidence of all these experiments, successful and unsuccessful, brief and long-lasting, strange and familiar. But you don't need to catalog it all, don't need to memorize every creature or remember every name or understand every relationship. Just let it all wash over you like a gentle wave, the sheer overwhelming abundance of life, the endless creativity of evolution, the patient work of natural selection operating over timescales so vast they're almost impossible to comprehend. Let it be a soft background hum, a gentle presence filling the space around you as you sink deeper and deeper into rest and relaxation and peace. Your breathing is so slow now, so even and calm and natural, barely noticeable. Your body feels heavy, completely relaxed, every muscle loose and soft and at ease. Your mind is quiet, thoughts few and far between. And the thoughts that do arise are vague and dreamlike, drifting past without demanding attention, like distant memories or half-formed wishes. You might still see occasional images from our journey, brief flashes of ancient life, but they're becoming fainter now, more dreamlike, less distinct, less defined, blending and blurring together. Maybe you see amber glowing softly in darkness, warm golden light in the black with shadows inside that might be insects, or might be something else, something imagined. Maybe you see the curve of Helicoprion's spiral tooth whorl, smooth and mathematical, a perfect logarithmic spiral created by biology rather than conscious design, beautiful in its geometric precision. Maybe you see a tiny skeleton curled up peacefully in a nest made of mud and plants, or a single footprint preserved in stone, 3 toes pressed into ancient mud that turned to rock. Maybe you see the delicate imprint of a feather, thin lines pressed into fine sediment, preserved for 100 million years, waiting patiently to tell its story. These images are gifts, small precious offerings from the deep past, and you can hold them very lightly, let them come and go as they please, without trying to grasp them or control them or hold on to them. There's no need to grip, no need to possess. Just rest in the simple knowledge that all of this existed, that life has been experimenting and adapting and creating and surviving for an almost infinite span of time, and that you, right now, in this present moment, are part of that ancient continuum, connected to it, woven into it, part of the same great story that began billions of years ago and continues still. The Burgess Shale is quiet now, high up in the mountains. Layers of dark shale holding the impressions of Hallucigenia and Opabinia and all their strange companions, keeping them safe, preserving their forms. The Messel Pit is a protected site now, a museum and a research station, its fossils carefully studied and safely stored. The Mongolian desert holds the fighting dinosaurs and countless other fossils still, buried in layers of sandstone, waiting patiently to be discovered, or perhaps already found and safely kept in museum collections around the world. And the amber, scattered across every continent, glows in collections and museums in private hands, each piece a little golden window into moments from the deep past, each one holding tiny creatures, tiny stories, tiny glimpses of ancient life. All of these places, all of these fossils, all of these stories are still there, still real, still available to anyone who wants to learn about them, to anyone who stops and takes the time to listen to what they have to tell us. And tonight, you listened. You let yourself be guided gently back through time, visiting creatures so strange they seem like dreams or hallucinations or impossible fantasies. And now, as our journey together ends, as the images fade softly and the ancient seas recede into memory, you can simply rest, letting go completely, knowing that you've touched something vast and old and beautiful, something that connects you to deep time and to all of life. Let the darkness be soft and comfortable around you, like a blanket, like a warm embrace. Let sleep come gently, naturally, without resistance or effort. You've traveled so far tonight, back through hundreds of millions of years, visiting ancient oceans and prehistoric forests and wind-swept deserts. And now, it's time to rest deeply and completely. The fossils will still be there tomorrow, and the day after that, and for as long as stone endures and curious minds exist to study them. But right now, in this perfect present moment, all you need to do is breathe slowly and let go of everything and sleep. The weird fossils are dreaming with you now. If stones can dream, if the past can somehow still exist in some parallel dimension of memory and imagination, Hallucigenia walks through the soft mud at the bottom of your subconscious mind, spines swaying gently. Opabinia's 5 eyes watch over you kindly, keeping guard while you sleep, protecting you. Helicoprion circles slowly somewhere in deep water, far below the surface of your awareness, patient and calm and timeless. The baby dinosaurs are curled up safe and warm in their ancient nests, and you are curled up safe and warm in your present nest, and everything is connected. Everything is one. Everything is peaceful. Everything is well. Everything is as it should be. And as you drift now into sleep, into dreams of your own making, the ancient world fades behind you, like mist in the morning sun, leaving only a gentle memory, a calm presence, a quiet reminder that time is long and life is strange and wonderful, and that it's perfectly okay to rest now, to let go completely, to simply be. Sleep well, dream gently, breathe slowly. The fossils will keep their patient watch through the night, timeless guardians holding the secrets of deep time in their stone embrace. And when you wake, whenever that may be, the world will still be full of wonder, still full of mysteries waiting to be explored, still full of beauty and strangeness and things we don't yet understand. But for now, there's only rest. For now, there's only peace. For now, there's nothing but soft, welcoming darkness and the quiet rhythm of your own breathing, slow and steady and peaceful, like the patient accumulation of sediment on an ancient seafloor, layer by layer, moment by moment, grain by grain, building something that will last. Good night. Rest well. Let yourself sink deeply into sleep, knowing you're safe, knowing you're connected to all of time, knowing that weird and wonderful things have existed and will exist again, and that your own life, your own brief moment in the vast span of time, is just as precious, just as meaningful, just as important as any ancient creature preserved in stone. Sleep now. Dream of ancient seas, if you wish, or dream of nothing at all. Let the fossils keep you company in the deep places of rest. And know that when morning comes, you'll carry with you a sense of connection to deep time, a feeling of wonder at the strangeness and beauty of life, and a peaceful understanding that you are part of something much larger than yourself, something ancient and ongoing and magnificent. Rest now, peace now, sleep now, all is well, and you are safe, and the long, strange journey of life continues, with you as part of it, now and always. Good night.